رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما رب العالمين. اللهم إنا على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك. أما بعد, of the punishment of sins, as Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah keeps telling us, the last thing we talked about was about al-ghayra, or jealousy. And this one is connected to it and is called dhahabul haya, that haya or shyness goes away. And shyness is one of those, or haya is one of those words or terms that are rich and so are untranslatable fully to English, because you can't fully capture it when you say shyness, because that also can convey weakness. Someone who's shy, typically, right, they don't speak up, they're not strong, they're not aggressive. So haya is not just that. Haya is having a sense of honor and a sense of shame when it comes to dishonorable matters, displeasing to Allah Azza wa Jal. You have that sense of this is wrong, and you're embarrassed to be around it, embarrassed to be a person who would commit that, and also resistant to it, so you'll speak up against it. So if you want to understand what haya is, more than the word shyness, understand how the Prophet ﷺ was, because he's described, كان أشد حياء من العذراء في خدرها. He sallallahu alayhi wasallam had more haya or more shyness than a virgin that is shielded from interaction, outside interactions, meaning shielded at home. So a person like that, a woman like that, young at that, who does not intermix with people, will be the most shy person you could imagine. And if you speak to her, she would just be very quiet, very shy, turned red in the face. So he said, alayhi salatu wasalam, he was more shy than that. But that does not mean that he does not speak up against evil, does not command good, that he is not brave and forward when need be. But when it comes to his own things, alayhi salatu wasalam, to his own personal things, he'd be very shy, right? So he says, oh, the punishment. So I'm going to use the word haya, shyness, haya, right? But you understand kind of the gap between them, right? So he says, and of the punishment of sin is that this haya will go away, and that haya is the life of the heart. And it's the origin of all good. And when it's gone, all good is gone. So it kind of encapsulates all of religion and all of morality when you have haya. And if you don't have it, you're not shy, you're not embarrassed, there's no sense of shame. And there's that based on no sense of right and wrong. Right? No sense of right and wrong. You don't have it, so you don't feel ashamed when doing anything or seeing anything. And in the Sahih, he said that he alayhi salatu wasalam, in the authentic hadith, he said, Al-haya'u khayrun kulluh. Haya is all good. There's nothing bad about it. Nothing bad. As long as it's practiced right, as long as you understand what haya is, right? So that's why there was one of the Sahaba who was saying, narrating this hadith or similar hadith, then another interjected and said, وَلَكِنَّنَا نَسْمَعُ فِي الْحِكْمَةِ. He says, but we hear from ancient wisdom, meaning alternate sources, that says some of it is good and some of it is bad. He said, I tell you that the Prophet ﷺ said all of it is good, and you're bringing me somebody else's words to oppose his, I'm not going to talk to you. So this is how they believed in what he said ﷺ, and they had allegiance to it. So of course what that man was talking about was not haya. It was just simple khajal, embarrassment, that would prevent you from speaking the truth. Here, that's not it. Haya only brings good. Only brings good. So again, it's a sense of right and wrong and a sense of honor. And he also said, alayhi salatu wassalam, إِنَّ مِمَّا أَدْرَكَ النَّاسُ مِنْ كَلَامِ النُّبُوَّةِ الْأُولَى إِذَا لَمْ تَسْتَحْيِي فَاصْنَعْ مَا شِئْتَ. He says, of what people still got hold of, still remembered from the statements of early prophethood. If you do not have haya, then do whatever you want. If you do not have haya, then do whatever you want. Is that the thing they still remembered from the words of early prophethood? And Ibn al-Qayyim, he says, وَفِيهِ تَفْسِيرًا. There are two explanations to that statement. If you don't have haya, then do whatever you want. He says it's either a threat or a direction, as he explains here. It's either a threat, meaning that Allah Azza wa Jal is telling people, if you are not shy, then in that case, do whatever you want. Do whatever you want, you're going to see the consequence. Meaning you should have it, but if you don't, after constant reminders and you're still not shy, you don't have hala, then guess what? Do whatever you want, you will see the consequence of this. And this is like when Allah Azza wa Jal, he says, Ibn al-Qayyim, he says, as when Allah said, اعملوا ما شئتم, do whatever you want. It's not a permission. Like, do whatever you want. Then because if that's a permission, then it would contradict everything else that the Prophet, that Allah Azza wa Jal had said. There's a car that is blocking someone. This is all going to be online, by the way. So this person is going to be famous or infamous. Black Nissan. Is it VDWB056, right? VDWB056. Jazakallah khairah. If you are doing that, inshallah, it's part of ihsan, part of good deeds, right? Just to go and relieve somebody's hardship and come back. Barakallahu feekum, right? So the first is what? A threat, right? اعملوا ما شئتم, do whatever you want. No, meaning Allah is telling you, do whatever you want, you'll find the consequence. Just like if you want to be combative with someone, right? And you want to fight with them or you want to test them, you say, oh yeah, hit me. That's not a permission, meaning hit me, I'm going to take it. Hit me, you'll see what's going to happen. So here, إِذَا لَمْ تَسْتَحِي, if you don't have that, then do it and then you'll find out the consequence of your deeds. So that's the threat. Or a direction, meaning that if you don't feel shy when committing such an act, then that's a valid act. That's permissible act. So meaning shyness is what? Your guide here. But of course you have to have fitrah. Right? You have to have the sound fitrah. You have to have the iman. You have to have a sound mind so that you distinguish between right and wrong. Right? You want to say something?
Yeah. I found another one. If in the Quran is more applicable, I think.
No. فَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيُؤْمِنْ وَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيَكْفُرْ. Or if you want to believe or if you want disbelieve. And again, Jazakallah khair, that's not a permission or that's not a choice. Some people will think, oh, it's just Allah is giving you the choice. In one sense, in a cosmic sense, you have a choice. But in a Sharia sense, you don't have a choice, right? Allah Azza wa Jal will condemn you for it when you meet Him. And you can't say, well, Allah, you gave me the option. It's not an option. Allah is threatening you. So, if we say that this is a direction, meaning, it means haya guides you. But you must be on the original fitrah for you to understand this. Now, what's interesting here is that the Prophet ﷺ noted that this is of the statements of early prophethood, meaning the early prophets spoke this and they said this. And still people remembered it and stayed. Maybe it stayed in terms of proverbs or, amthal, wisdom that circulates, but it was originally from Allah Azza wa Jal through the prophets that He had sent to humanity, which tells you that haya is the origin, as He said, of all sharia. Right? It's based on it. And when you don't have it, you don't have Islam, you don't have sharia, you don't have iman. So you must have it. And it's connected to life, as Ibn al-Qayyim will say. It's connected to life. That is haya and haya. And haya, they're close. Haya is life. Haya is this shyness that we talked about. So as if, subhanAllah, because they are derived or so close to each other, it's as if to tell you that this is so natural that if you're alive, you must have a sense of shame and right and wrong. Just alive, right? Having full life, uncorrupted life, you'll have a sense of right and wrong, what you can do and what you cannot do. But when you begin to lose this, you begin to lose real life. You're living in body only, but you're not living in soul, right? And we are living, just when we spoke previously about that kind of sense of jealousy, right? When you see something wrong being done and how we're losing that, haya is the brother of this, the brother of that jealousy, that shyness, because we're losing that as well. So people feel less and less ashamed of doing wrong things. Right? And that is, wallahu alam, the effect of being so materialistic. Living in a capitalist world with a capitalist point of view. Because capitalism is based on what? Matter, materialism, just money. There's no soul in it. There's no real morality to it. What is the morality in capitalism? It's just you make a profit, you make money. That's the good thing. There's nothing wrong, right? So if you're materialistic and it's only based on body and matter when you can touch and how you can make money, why would you have shame? Because if you could use your body to make money, would you not use it? Because it's profitable. It would be insane not to use it. If that's the moral foundation of a person, yeah, of course, use your body to make money. Why not? And of course, if you have a body that is attractive, what to stop you from displaying that body and feeling good about yourself when you display it? And losing all sense of shame by saying, I'm not going to feel ashamed about my body. No body shaming. I'm going to show this and I'm going to show that. And yeah, of course, and people egg each other. Yeah, of course, demonstrate this, show this. You're so beautiful, you're so attractive, this is this and this is that. So there is no haya at all. You lose it. And so subhanAllah, a person devolves into becoming worse than an animal, right? Because animals, when they display their body, they display it for what? Mating. Just to find like a husband, let's call it, right? Find a wife. For mating, not for money, not for profit, right? So that is an early understanding that people had of what shyness is, and he said it's the cornerstone. He says, is it possible that, since we said it's a threat or a direction, he says, could it be in both of them at the same time? He says no. According to his opinion, it could mean this or that, but one leads to the other. Meaning if you say it's a threat, it kind of leads you to understand that it also gives you an option and a direction. Or if it's a direction, you'll understand from it that it could also be a threat. So both of them. He says the point here is that sins will weaken haya to an extent that you could lose it completely. And he could reach, or she could reach the point that he or she, they don't care about people knowing the terrible things that they are doing. Even the intimate details. In fact, he will volunteer and tell them, I'm doing these terrible things. The reason why he is so public about all of this, as we mentioned before, is that he had lost all haya. He says if a person has reached that level, it's hard to reform him. Can't hope to reform him. It doesn't mean that you've lost hope, but you've reached the brink of disaster right now. Because if you have nothing left and you're going to commit every despicable act in public and you are going to volunteer to tell people about it, especially it's most despicable when it's for money, right? If you're going to do that, then what's left in you in terms of morality, in terms of good to bring you back? So, وَلَمْ يَبْقَى فِي صَلَاحِهِ مَطْمَعٍ, and he's here, there's a verse of poetry here. He says, وَإِذَا رَأَى, those type of people. He says, وَإِذَا رَأَى إِبْلِيسُ طَلْعَةَ وَجْهِهِ حَيَّ وَقَالَ فَدَيْتُ مَنْ لَا يُفْلِحُ. He says, when Iblis will see such a face, he says, welcome, I'll die for such a loser. Right? I'll give my life for such a loser. Meaning that he wants to convey that when Iblis sees such a person whom he had managed so much to misguide, when he sees him, he will be so happy. He says, welcome, I would die for people like you. Meaning, I've got you, and I would wish to get more of you. Then he says, وَالْحَيَاءُ مُشْتَقٌ مِنَ الْحَيَاةِ. Right? Haya is derived from haya, meaning as long as you're alive. Meaning, subhanAllah, just think of people whom their fitrah is not corrupt. Would he or would she allow somebody to come and touch their spouse? Be close to them, flirt with them, just natural. See them naked, right? Would they permit that? He says, no, right? That's fitrah. That's part of that haya. Allah had deposited that in you. If you lose it, then you're losing your own humanity. He says, وَالْغَيْثُ, he says, even water is called hayya bil-qasri, because water brings life, and that's connected also to haya. And he says also haya brings life in the dunya and in the akhirah. So one who does not haya is dead in this dunya and miserable in the akhirah. And he says there's a connection between lack of haya, lack of shyness, and what we talked about last week, which is kind of the zeal or jealousy, because all of them bring each other or lead to each other. And he says, subhanallah, this is beautiful. He says, وَمَنْ اسْتَحْيَا مِنَ اللَّهِ عِنْدَ مَعْصِيَتِهِ اسْتَحْيَا اللَّهُ مِنْ عُقُوبَتِهِ يَوْمَ يَلْقَاهُ. It says, if you are shy to disobey Allah Azza wa Jal, when it comes time to disobey Him, you're shy, Allah will be shy to punish you. And the shyness of Allah Azza wa Jal, again, right? It's haya. It's not weakness, but Allah Azza wa Jal will not see fit to punish you. Right? Okay, will not see. And haya is a one attribute of Allah Azza wa Jal. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَسْتَحْيِي أَن يَضْرِبَ مَثَلًا مَا. It's mentioned in the Quran. Right? وَمَنْ لَمْ يَسْتَحِي مِنْ مَعْصِيَتِهِ لَمْ يَسْتَحِي مِنْ عُقُوبَتِهِ. And it says, if you are not, don't have haya when it comes to sin, Allah will not have haya to punish you. Right? So if you have if you're a person of haya, right, then you will not sin. You will see it kind of embarrassing beneath a servant of Allah Azza wa Jal. You'd be embarrassed that Allah would see you like that. And then how would you face Him? How would you explain it so you would stay away from it? And subhanAllah, the one who is, if you have a haya of Allah Azza wa Jal, things around you will have a haya around you. Even the angels of Allah Azza wa Jal, right? As he said, alayhi salatu wassalam, as he once was sitting, alayhi salatu wassalam, right? And Abu Bakr came, Umar came, and then Uthman came, he adjusted the way he sat, alayhi salatu wassalam. They say, why? When Umar came, Abu Bakr and Umar came, you sat casually, but when Uthman came, you adjusted. He says, أَلَا أَسْتَحِي مِمَّا تَسْتَحِي مِنْهُ الْمَلَائِكَةِ. Shall I not have haya of the one whom the angels have haya around? Right? Uthman ibn Affan was known to be what? A person of extreme haya. So the Prophet ﷺ reflected that in how he also treated him. He had a lot of haya towards him, because the angels of Allah Azza wa Jal had haya around Uthman. Right? So whatever character, good character you have, it'll be reflected in what is around. So the angels used to run away from whom? Umar. Like take the other path, right? When Umar, because Umar was so strong. Right? I'm sorry, the devils. Did I say the devils? Okay, so the devils, right? They used to be afraid of Umar, radiyallahu anhu. And the angels have haya of Uthman. So whatever character you have, you excel at, of the worship of Allah Azza wa Jalla, that bring you closer to Him, it affects also how other things around or other beings around relate to you. Right? So he says here that your haya here will cause Allah Azza wa Jalla to have haya so He doesn't punish you. He says, and also from the punishment of sins is that they weaken the heart, and the heart does not revere Allah Azza wa Jal, does not honor Him. And Allah's kind of respect, you lose Allah's respect in your heart. And it has to happen. He says, whether you wish that or not. Because if you really revered Allah, you wouldn't disobey Him. That kind of makes sense, right? Because if you revere anyone, you wouldn't upset Him. If you honor, if you respect anyone, you would not disrespect them. So if you sin, it must affect how you respect and revere Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, and maybe somebody who is fooled will say, the thing that makes me sin is that I hope the best from Allah Azza wa Jalla, and I hope that He will forgive me. It's not that I revere Him less. And he says, this is a false argument. That nafs is introducing a false argument. مُغَالَطَةٌ مِنَ النَّفْسِ. Because he says that reverence that a person has in the heart of the servant must require that you stay away from sin. And that requires, right, and ta'ظيم الحرمات, meaning you honor Allah's prohibitions. You look at them with reverence. Allah said no, so it really means no. And if Allah really said no to this, it means that you will stay away from this sin. And those who transgress those bounds and they commit those sins, they did not revere Allah and honor Him as He should supposed to be revered. And How could it be that someone could revere Allah Azza wa Jalla and honor Him and consider Him to be the greatest and the most powerful and who could see everyone and sees into your heart, and He's Al-Kabir, Al-Muta'ali, Al-Aziz, all of these, and yet you commit that sin? How is it possible that you have all of these attributes in your mind and in your heart? You believe in them, yet you go against them. So you don't go against them unless they are weak. And if you go against Allah, that sin will weaken your iman in Allah Azza wa Jalla. It has. So he says it's enough punishment that Allah Azza wa Jalla will take the reverence, or you will take a reverence away from your heart, so you will esteem Allah less and revere Him less and respect Him less and love Him less. And he says, of that punishment, because this is what you did, you revere Allah less, you respect Allah less, Allah Azza wa Jalla will take the respect that people have for you from their hearts. So people will respect you less and revere you less and love you less. And remember, we talked a little bit about this. So if you don't honor Allah, people will not honor you. If you don't respect Allah, people will not respect you. If you don't elevate Allah Azza wa Jal, people will demote you and downgrade you. قال ويهون عليهم ويستخفون به كما هان عليه أمره واستخف به. They will belittle you, they will make fun of you, they will ridicule you as you ridiculed Allah's commands. فعلى قدر محبة العبد لله يحبه الناس. These are the beautiful words of Ibn al-Qayyim that kind of you want to remember and you want to highlight. قال فعلى قدر محبة العبد لله يحبه الناس. As much as you love Allah, people will love you. And of course, we're not seeking people's love by saying we want to love Allah. It's not like an indirect way of saying, I want people to love me, so I want to love Allah for that. That's not our ultimate goal, right? No, our ultimate goal is the love of Allah, but He wants to show you consequences and rewards of things that you want anyway. So He says, as much as you love Allah, people will love you. وَعَلَى قَدْرِ خَوْفِهِ مِنَ اللَّهِ يَخَافُهُ الْخَلْقِ. That's really beautiful. And as much as you love Allah, people will be afraid of you. Now you want to say, I don't know if I want people to be afraid of me. But it's the nice type of fear. Respect. Respect, right? As much as you fear Allah. So this person, right? Defenseless, nothing with him, no power, no one to protect him, has in a sense no backing. لَيْسَ لَهُ ظَهْرٍ. No backing. Enters into the court of a king or a khalifa. That person is about to kill him or he could kill him, and he speaks the truth. And he releases him. Like he faces him, right? Confronts him with things that he doesn't like to, doesn't want to hear. Just like Musa alayhi salam went to Pharaoh. What stopped Pharaoh from killing Musa? You think about it, right? He's alone. Or with Harun. Still, what kind of power do they have in the court of Pharaoh? And he says, and he's speaking directly to Pharaoh, do this and do this and do this. Towards the end, he's harsh with Pharaoh when he talks to him. What stops him from killing Musa and Harun? What backing does he have? Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah Azza wa Jal. Right? So it's also mentioned, it just came to mind right now. That's the story of Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, when he and a group of scholars, they came out of Damascus, and there was a camp of the Mongols, Al-Maghul, or Al-Tatar, they call them, and they were camping outside. And so he, with the scholars, went to talk to them. And when some of the scholars, other scholars, they were talking to the Mongols, and the Mongols are known to be ruthless. I mean, they could just kill you. There is no hesitation. So when they were talking to them, they were being very diplomatic. Ibn Taymiyyah, when he started to talk to the Mongol leader, he was very brave and confrontational and not antagonistic, but you came here and you're saying that you're Muslims and you're killing people and you're taking their money and. This is direct to his face, right? And people are saying that the rest who came with him, it says as he is talking, he says kind of they start to withdraw back, going back a little bit, collecting their clothes because they're thinking he's going to be killed, so they want to be tainted or contaminated with his blood. He's dead, right? So, and the leader there, I think he was Qazan, I'm not sure. The leader there, he was sitting and listening and taking it all. Sitting and listening and taking it all. So at the end of it, right, he said that later. He said to Ibn Taymiyyah, he said, make dua for me. He says, oh Allah, if this servant Qazan of yours had come to elevate your religion and champion it and do this and do good things, Ya Allah, elevate him and support him and do this and this. And if you know that he is displeasing to you and came to oppose your religion and kill people and take their money, dishonor him and do this to him and do this to him and do that to him, to his face. So the people then, other scholars who were with Ibn Taymiyyah, they said, Wallahi, we're not going to go back with you. You're about to kill us all. We're not going to journey back to Damascus with you. He says, I'm not going to go back with you either way. Right? Even if you didn't ask, I'm not going to go back with you. So they've separated. He left with some people. They left alone. So Ibn Taymiyyah, right, when he left, a lot of people came around to celebrate what he said, thank him for it, whatever. And then he journeyed back safely to Damascus. The other people on their way, right, because they were alone, highway robbers came, they stopped them, stole everything that they had with them, and they came back with nothing to Damascus. So it's just an idea here that, yeah, I mean, you could be afraid of people, but it's not going to take you anywhere. And people will trample all over you, humiliate you, because they know you're afraid of them. So if I know that you're afraid of me, well, of course, you're my servant now. I control you. But if you're afraid of Allah Azza wa Jal, I got no control over you. I can try to punish you, torture you, this and that. But if I fail to break your spirit, you're stronger than me. And you're stronger than me because of Allah Azza wa Jal. So that's why he says, على قدر خوفه من الله يخافه الخلق. وعلى قدر تعظيمه الله وحرماته يعظم الناس حرماته. He says, as much as you honor Allah Azza wa Jal and His prohibitions, people will honor your prohibitions, meaning they're not going to cross you, cross whatever is sanctified. Your money, your honor, your property, your religion, they're not going to attack you. Why didn't they going to honor you? Not because you honored Allah Azza wa Jal. So you stopped where you're supposed to stop. They're going to stop when they're supposed to stop. Wallahu a'lam. And by the way, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be hurt. I don't want a person to understand that, oh, just if I obey Allah Azza wa Jal, no one is going to hurt me. You'll be hurt, right? You will be hurt. He says, how do you know? He says, did not the prophets of Allah get hurt? So you'll be hurt. So in the beginning, but eventually, no. Eventually, you'll have power over them, right? But initially, you will be hurt. He says, and how is it possible that a person could transgress Allah's prohibitions and think that people are not going to cross His own prohibitions? Or how is it possible that he will look down on Allah's rights and Allah Azza wa Jal will not downgrade him in people's eyes? Or how is it possible that he's not going to take lightly Allah's sins and then people will not also ridicule him? And he says Allah Azza wa Jal had pointed to that in His book when He talked about the punishment of sin, meaning how this punishment fits the sin and it's of the nature of that sin. وَأَنَّهُ أَرْكَسَ أَرْبَابَهَا بِمَا كَسَبُوا. Those sins, people who commit that sins, Allah Azza wa Jal turns them on their heads. As they have turned on their fitrah upside down, He turns them on their heads, meaning He demotes them or He destroys them because of it. And He said He puts a seal on their hearts because of it, and He forgot them as they forgot Him. And we'll talk about that ayah inshaAllah. وَأَهَانَهُمْ كَمَا أَهَانُوا دِينَهُ. And He humiliated them as they humiliated His religion, and He let go of them as they ignored, or He ignored them or let go of them as they ignored His command. And He says, and that's why Allah Azza wa Jal, He said in the ayah about the prostration of creation to Him, وَمَن يُهِنِ اللَّهُ فَمَا لَهُ مِن مُكْرِمٍ. If Allah humiliates one, no one can bring honor to them. So it's the ayah, He's saying the ayah is about all of creation prostrating to Allah Azza wa Jal. Then He said after, and the one who is humiliated by Allah Azza wa Jal, no one can honor him. Then He says, when they refused to prostrate to Allah Azza wa Jal and they took that lightly and ridiculed it and did not do it, Allah humiliated them. Right? فَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُمْ مُكْرِمٌ بَعْدَ أَنْ هَانَهُمُ اللَّهُ. No one could honor them after Allah had humiliated them. So you understand what the at-tanasub, what's the connection here? That Allah Azza wa Jal is asking people who want honor to humble themselves to them. to Him. So what is that greatest position of humility? Is sujood, which kind of expresses physically the ultimate submission, which is also supposed to do what? Indicate the submission of the soul. And you're not prostrating by body only, but by body and soul. So if a person is proud enough and arrogant enough, and a disbeliever who rejects that type of humility, Allah Azza wa Jalla is saying that, then you're not going to get any honor. You're not going to get any honor. And if Allah Azza wa Jalla humiliates you, who can give you honor? And that is also a beautiful piece of wisdom to keep in mind. Because as we talked about previously, everybody's looking for honor, to be honorable, to have power, not to be humiliated, for his rights not to be taken away from him. So if you see now in the Muslims, do we have ikram or do we have ihana? Ihana, we're really humiliated, except for a few of us. But everybody else is really humiliated. So what's the way out of it? So there's one thing that we are not doing, which is that what? We don't have ikram of Allah Azza wa Jal. It's as simple as that. ما أكرمنا الله عز وجل فما أكرمنا الله. Yeah, we didn't honor Allah, so Allah didn't honor us. If you were to honor Allah, Allah would honor you. And even if everybody turns against you and they want to bring you down, they can't. Because they tried with Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, all that they had, all their power, they couldn't. So worldly power cannot stand against Allah Azza wa Jal. And worldly power cannot bring someone down whom Allah had elevated. So that's why Allah is saying, if Allah humiliates you, no one can bring honor to you. And if He honors you, no one can humiliate you. All the attacks will just wash away. All the plots will be turned away against them even. And you'll be safe eventually by Allah Azza wa Jal, right? وَمَنْ ذَا يُكْرِمُ مَنْ أَهَانَهُ اللَّهُ أَوْ يُهِينُ مَنْ أَكْرَمَهُ اللَّهُ. No. He says, وَمِنْ عُقُوبَاتِهَا, and of the punishment of sins, he also says, أنها تستدعي نسيان الله لعبده وتركه وتخليته بينه وبين نفسه وشيطانه. He says what they cause is that Allah Azza wa Jal will forget you, let go of you, neglect you, and leave you to yourself and leave you to your shaitan, and that is destruction with which there is no escape, or there's no safety, there's no salvation. I mean, Allah, if He forgets you and if He leaves you, right, to yourself and to your shaitan. So if you're left to yourself and to your shaitan, you're destroyed. Because yourself cannot save you, and shaitan is against you. And he says, Allah Azza wa Jal said, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who have iman, have taqwa of Allah, and consider what you had put forward for tomorrow. مَا قَدَّمَتْ نَفْسٌ لِغَدْ. What did you do for tomorrow? وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ, have taqwa of Allah. إِنَّ اللَّهَ خَبِيرٌ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ. Allah knows well what you are doing. وَلَا تَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ نَسُوا اللَّهَ فَأَنْسَاهُمْ أَنفُسَهُم. And do not be like those who forgot about Allah, and Allah made them forget about themselves. Do not be like those who forgot about Allah, then Allah made them forget about themselves. And He said, the punishment of the one who leaves taqwa is that you forget about yourself, and forgetting about yourself is forgetting about your well-being, your own welfare, what benefits you. And it's always kind of amazing to kind of try to understand this ayah, right? How could a person forget about their own welfare? Because the thing that you're doing every single minute of the day is being worried about your own welfare. Okay? But not a lot of people think about others. But most of the time, even if you're thinking about others, most of the time you're thinking about your own welfare. I'm hungry, I need to eat. I'm thirsty, I need to drink. I'm naked, I need to be covered. I need more money, I need more this, more this, more this. You're always thinking about yourself, and the benefit, not the harm, the benefit. So how could you forget about your own well-being and its protection from punishment? Because you forgot about the next life. That's the beginning of it. You forgot about the next life. So if a person is not worried about the next life, you're marching towards your own destruction. You're doing all the things that may please you now, Oh, this is beautiful, I'll eat it and I'll drink it. This is beautiful, I will look at it, I'll listen to it, I'll touch it, I'll do it, I'll smoke it, whatever it is. So you're taking things. So you're seeking pleasure all the time. Again, it's very materialistic. And this whole global culture is materialistic. And there's very tiny space left for those who have Iman. Very, very small. Right? That if you think like that, you're really awkward. You're really out of place. But so everything is about my pleasure, what I'm feeling right now, what I want right now. So make me happy. So social media, make me happy, let me smoke, make me happy. It's only chasing whatever, this temporary, momentary happiness. So you're thinking about you're making yourself what? Happy. And this is your own benefit. But this is like somebody who is taking drugs, thinking just because he's taking drugs and he's feeling fine while he's taking drug, he's fine. But you're killing your body. So there's no vision of what's going to happen later. I just want the right now. So you're killing your body. Or you're sleeping around, you're thinking, oh, that's fun, I'm feeling nice, right? I'm feeling that urge, so I'm fulfilling it one after the other. But you don't understand, what you're doing to your own body when this is happening. The disease is that you're contracting and giving to other people. Some of them you may feel, but some of them you may not feel, but you have them. Right? Like there's 1 million people, they say there's 1 million people each day globally that are contracting sexual diseases, or they call them sexual infections. Some of them don't have symptoms, but you take them and you spread them. 1 million each day globally. That's a lot. Right? That's a lot. Just think about that. So what are you doing to yourself? What are you doing to other people around you? Then what you're doing to your society? You're drinking alcohol. Oh, it's freedom. Let me drink alcohol, right? It's freedom. Let me drink alcohol. We don't want it to be banned. Or this haram. We don't want it to be banned. So you think this is the well-being and welfare of society and yourself, but there's blindness. So subhanAllah, you can see it. Nasullah, they forgot about Allah. And we say, we're going to decide what's right and what's wrong, right? Religion has no influence here. There's no place for God here. Okay, so you've taken God out. Okay, show us. And you see them doing things that are idiotic, stupid, very stupid. And you want to see an indication of that stupidity. Look at the political leadership. Aren't they stupid? I'm not here talking just about, I'm not talking about Muslim countries. I'm talking about non-Muslim countries. The ones who are supposed to have democracy and be able to choose the best leaders. Are they choosing the best leaders? They're the stupidest people over there. How did it come that you select the stupidest people to elect you, to rule you? How? And even the system is not amenable to change, can't be fixed, and you can't choose the best. You choose the same type of people over and over and over. It's an indication of what? This whole widespread corruption. So really, Nasullah, they forgot about Allah, so Allah made them forget about themselves. Allah left them to themselves. And then the shaitan came and said, you know what, I'm going to give you advice. So you don't want divine advice? Let me give you advice. This is legal and this is legal, and try this and try that. And if it fails, and if you can't stop a drug, make it legal. If you can't stop another drug, make it legal, right? And encourage people. And then needles, free needles, right? Maybe this will help. And so there's this complete collapse or complete surrender in front of sin, right? So he said they forgot their eternal life and their true pleasure. So Allah Azza wa Jal made them forget all of that because they forgot the reverence of Allah Azza wa Jal, the fear of Allah, and upholding His commands. So he says, فَتَرَى الْعَاصِي مُهْمِلًا لِمَصَالِحِ نَفْسِهِ. You see the sinful, neglectful of his own benefit, wasteful of it. Allah Azza wa Jal had closed his heart so he doesn't remember Him. He follows his desire. His marriages are wasteful. The affairs of the dunya and the akhirah are all in neglect, and he had lost his eternal happiness. And he had replaced it with something that is a pleasure, but is a very fleeting pleasure. And he says, كَمَا قِيلَ أَحْلَامُ نَوْمٍ أَوْ كَظِلٍّ زَائِلِ إِنَّ اللَّبِيبَ مِثْلِهَا لَا يُخْدَعُ. It is like dreams or like a fleeting shadow. He says the smart one is not deceived with that. You don't think that a dream will last or that a shadow will stay in its place. He said the same thing with the dunya or with these pleasures. So that, he says, this is the greatest punishment, that you would sell yourself and get in return these types of pleasures, فَضَيَّعَ مَنْ لَا غِنَى عَنْهُ وَلَا عِوَضَ لَهُ مِنْهُ. He says, so he wasted, he's talking about Allah Azza wa Jal. فَضَيَّعَ, he had wasted, he had lost the one he cannot live without, and the one who is irreplaceable. Allah Azza wa Jal is irreplaceable. And you cannot find someone to take his place. So he says this person had lost the irreplaceable. If everything else is lost, you could say, I could find an alternative. I can find a replacement. I can even find someone better. But if you lose Allah Azza wa Jal, what would replace him? You can keep looking and looking and looking. There's no spouse, there's no child, there's no job, there's no palace that can shield you from a loss of Allah Azza wa Jal. Because you lost Allah, and then what's going to fill that place? You're still going to die. You're still going to lose all of these things that you have. Where are you going to run? So there's nowhere to run away from Allah Azza wa Jal except back to Allah. Then He shields you and gives you shelter. But run away from Allah, where will you run then? You think about it, I'm running away from Allah Azza wa Jal, that's it. Just like a child, right, who says he's upset with his parents and he says, I'm leaving. You didn't give me chocolate today, I'm leaving. So they pack a little bags and they just leave. I don't know if you've seen some of these videos, they're funny. So just leave the front door and they go walk to the street and they look around and they come back. Right? Because there's no place to go, right? But you just have to perform that. You have to show them that you're angry. So, okay, you're going to be angry with Allah and you want to leave. You're resentful, this and that. Okay, leave. Where would you go? This is the most alienating, loneliest feeling to have. But if you come back to Allah Azza wa Jal, you're shielded and protected, right? You're in the company of Allah Azza wa Jal. So Allah is irreplaceable. قَالَ وَاسْتَبْدَلَ بِهِ مَنْ عَنْهُ كُلُّ الْغِنَى أَوْ مِنْهُ كُلُّ الْعِوَضِ. And He replaced Allah with something that is very replaceable, and you can find an alternative to it. And He says, مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ إِذَا ضَيَّعْتَهُ عِوَضٌ وَمَا مِنَ اللَّهِ إِنْ ضَيَّعْتَهُ عِوَضٌ. It says everything that you lose, Allah Azza wa Jal could replace it. But if you lose Allah Azza wa Jal, no one can replace Him. Right? No. So he said, فَمَا ظَلَمَ الْعَبْدُ رَبَّهُ وَلَكِنْ ظَلَمَ نَفْسَهُ. He says that the servant did not commit injustice against Allah Azza wa Jal, but he did that against himself. And Allah was not unjust with him, but He's the one who's unjust with himself. When we say Allah forgot you, we say, well, how did Allah forget Him? He says, because you don't want Allah Azza wa Jal, so you distance yourself from Him. So this is the outcome. So Allah forgets you because this is what you chose for yourself. So He's saying, you did not wrong Allah, but you wronged yourself. And Allah did not wrong you. You did that to yourself. You chose it and you did it to yourself, right? And he said, rahimahullah, and this the last part, inshallah, we'll just take a portion of it. And he says from the punishment is that it will expel the person from that circle of ihsan and prevent him from or deprive him the reward of the muhsineen. And he's talking here about Islam and Iman and Ihsan being three circles. So that smallest circle is the circle of Ihsan, and that is for the elect, the select, the best of the best. So that's the smaller circle, has the fewest number of people. The more bigger one is the one of Iman. That's a bigger circle and has more than the people of Ihsan in it, but it includes, right? So the people of Ihsan are in the circle of Iman and the circle of Islam, but the one in Ihsan is exclusive. It's right there at the top. Then the one at the bottom is the people of Iman. It has more people in it. And the one at the very bottom is the people of Islam. So you are Muslim, but if you have a better, stronger belief, Iman, you go into the Iman circle or the Iman level. And if your Iman has a stronger Iman, you reach the level of Ihsan. So it says you'd be expelled from that higher level of Ihsan and you'd fall into the level of Iman, or you'd be expelled from the level of Iman into all the way the level of Islam. So he said about Ihsan here, Ihsan, when it is in the heart, if it touches the heart, it will stop him from sin. Because the one who worships Allah Azza wa Jal as if he sees Him, as if Allah Azza wa Jal is right in front of him. He could see Allah or Allah could see you. He says this only happens because the dhikr of Allah and the love of Allah and His fear and His hope is dominant in the heart. That's the most dominant thing, because imagine you are sitting there as if you could see Allah Azza wa Jal. So that is a very strong connection to Him, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you can see Allah or He could see you, you love Him so much, you fear Him so much, you're close that much, it's not possible for you to commit that sin. Right? So, وَذَلِكَ يَحُولُ بَيْنَهُ وَبَيْنَ إِرَادَةِ الْمَعْصِيَةِ فَضْلًا عَنْ مُوَاقَعَتِهَا. This would prevent you from wanting to sin, let alone doing it. So even the desire to sin will not be there, because the heart is filled with something else. The substance is something else. It's not about, let me sin, let me do this, let me do that. It's thinking about something else. It's observant of something else. Not of sin, not the dunya, but the akhirah. So that's the person who has ihsan. If he exits from the circle of ihsan, then the companionship of the select, of the few, of the best, that he will lose. He will lose that. He will not be among them. Not only that he will not have it, but he will not be among them. And their comfortable living and their happy living, meaning because they are close to Allah Azza wa Jal, their living is a beautiful living. They don't have to be rich. Okay? They don't have to be powerful. But where does this comfortable living come from? It's the living of the heart. Just like an average, person, okay? Doesn't have a lot of money, doesn't have a lot of prestige, people don't know him, but he's happy. So the happiness comes from a connection to Allah Azza wa Jal. He knows, I'm content because Allah gives it. And if I need something, I'll go to Allah Azza wa Jal. And Allah opens closed doors. And if I want a door to close where harm comes, I'll ask Allah and Allah will close them. So his trust is with Allah Azza wa Jal. His destination is with Allah. His hope is with Allah, fear of Allah. So that's why his heart is at peace. And if his heart begins to what? Lose his peace, he comes back to the dhikr of Allah and to his salah, and his peace is restored. So his living is comfortable, it's peaceful, he's happy. So he says you lose that. قال فإذا أراد الله به خيرا, I mean, even if he exits that, if Allah wants the best for him, Allah Azza wa Jal will put him in that bigger circle of the believers. But if he continues and he sins and those sins expel him from that circle of the believers, he will lose the company of the faithful. And he just mentions the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, لا يزني الزاني حين يزني وهو مؤمن. The fornicator, the adulterer does not commit that while he is a mu'min. And he does not drink alcohol while he is a mu'min. And he does not steal while he is a mu'min. And he does not usurp rights while he is a mu'min, while people see him while he is a mu'min. فَإِيَّاكُمْ إِيَّاكُمْ, beware, beware. وَالتَّوْبَةُ مَعْرُوضَةٌ بَعْدٍ, and repentance is still available. So he's saying that a fornicator does not commit it while a mu'min. Meaning that that sin will expel you from the circle of Iman. That's the interpretation. It doesn't mean that you become a kafir. Okay? So that is a major sin. And a major sin like that, unless a person says what? Zina is halal. Which is far more dangerous than committing zina. Right? Or if a person says alcohol is halal, which is far more dangerous than drinking alcohol. Because then you're opposing Allah and His book and His Prophet ﷺ. Whereas the other is just simply a sin of a weak person. So he says, if a person commits zina or drinks alcohol or he steals, he exits from that circle of Iman, falls into the circle of Islam. His Iman is weak. And he says if that's the case, he will lose the company of the believers and will lose Allah's defense, because Allah defends you when you are a believer. فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ يُدَافِعُ عَنِ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. Allah protects and He defends the believers. And that's a complete defense, by the way, right? And it's an interesting ayah, because the greater your iman, remember when we said the greater your commitment to Allah Azza wa Jal, the greater your honor? The same thing, the greater your iman, the greater the defense. And the weaker the iman, the weaker the defense. So if you find that Allah Azza wa Jal is not defending you as much, I don't blame Him, because the defense is ready, right? Go back to your iman and increase it, and Allah's protection will increase. So same thing if somebody is suffering because of envy. Okay? There's envy, or there's sihr, or there's the harm of the shayateen, right? So if you want Allah's protection from it, what do? You increase your iman, and you increase your dhikr, and you increase your Quran. But it doesn't stop there, because there is defense against the disbelievers and their plots, against the hypocrites, against the whispers of the shaitan, against anything that is harmful. Inna Allaha yudafi'u 'anil ladina amanu. Allah defends the believers. So you want the defense from Allah Azza wa Jal, okay? Then increase your iman. So he says that if he is not of the believers, he loses Allah's defense. وَفَاتَهُ كُلُّ خَيْرٍ رَتَّبَهُ اللَّهُ فِي كِتَابِهِ عَلَى الْإِيمَانِ. And every good thing that Allah had made a consequence of having iman, he will lose that, as mentioned in the Quran. And then he starts listing some of these benefits, and we'll leave that inshallah to next week bi'idhnillah azza wa jal. Alhamdulillah. Let me know inshallah if you have questions. Yeah, all the way there. Anything specific from the Quran and Sunnah that references, nurtures ihsan. Yani, there's nothing better than what the Prophet ﷺ said, أَن تَعْبُدَ اللَّهَ كَأَنَّكَ تَرَاهُ. You worship Allah as if you could see Him, but if not, then you see Him. So a person tries to bring himself to that position, meaning Allah is watching me. Allah is watching me. Allah sees what I'm doing. Allah is listening to what I'm doing. Allah is with me. Allah is very close to me. So to feel the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the practice of everything at the level of Islam and then everything at the level of Iman prepares a person for ihsan. So everything that is in the Sharia. So taking care of one's salah, the obligations, and taking care of one's wudu, and taking care of dua, and taking dhikr of Allah Azza wa Jal, because all that reminds you of Allah. So it brings kind of the awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to you at all times. So the more that you say, Subhanallah, walhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, wallahu akbar, wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, and the rest of the dhikr of Allah Azza wa Jal brings Allah's awareness into your heart, and brings Allah Azza wa Jal closer to you and you to Him. So dhikr, the salah itself, but while you're doing all of this, to feel that Allah is very close to you and that Allah is watching you, and to feel that while you are doing your salah and doing the rest of your ibadah, and with habit and with dua, a person will reach that level of ihsan. Like, there's, yeah, tafadhal.
I once heard that Umar radiallahu anhu said, كنا لله فأعزنا الله بالإسلام فكلما ابتغينا العزة بغير الإسلام أذلنا الله.
Sahih.
Can we say the Muslim world are now in that position?
Yes, absolutely. Jazakallah khair. Sahih. You know, he's saying that he remembers reading that Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu said, the meaning of which is that we were people that Allah Azza wa Jal honored us because of Islam. So if we seek honor through anything else, Allah humiliates us. So he says this kind of encapsulates what's happening to us today. And the answer is 100% true. This is it. Kind of summarizes it. So, I mean, the funny thing is that we know kind of the answer. So we sought the solution through nationalism, socialism, communism, capitalism, liberalism. And we're still trying all these things, and they're now working, and we're getting worse and worse and worse because of it. So we ought to really go back to the only thing in our history that made sense, that historically was proven to give us honor, which is that adhering to the Quran and the Sunnah. It was proven, it gave us honor. When we left it, we began to lose it, and now we got little left of it. So you want more of that, Allah Azza wa Jalla will honor us, as you said, because we will honor Allah Azza wa Jalla. Jazakallah.
My question was because you were mentioning about the connection with Allah, building love with Allah. There's some people I meet where they have su'a dhann billah. Like, for example, they think that like something bad happens in their life, they ask why did this happen, or they think this thing is a punishment for them. So my question is, when how to overcome this when a person is at that situation?
Mm-hmm. So the question is that we're talking about kind of building up the love that we have for Allah Azza wa Jal. Some people have a misjudgment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When something bad happens to them, they turn and they accuse Allah Azza wa Jal of why did you do that to me, in a sense, or maybe Allah is punishing me. So how do we deal with this? So the first thing is to believe that if Allah Azza wa Jal is testing you, kind of to understand the nature of what a test is. If Allah is testing you, if bad things are happening to you, it does not mean that Allah hates you. That is the wrong conclusion. It's not like you're interpreting what Allah is doing through human standards. If I hate you, I will punish you. If I like you, I give you gifts, right? That's how humans behave with each other. So this is kind of the tashbih that we're doing. Allah behaves like humans do. Allah doesn't behave like this. When we know that Allah Azza wa Jal, that if He loves someone, He will test them. If He wants to wake him up, He will test them. He will let them go through trials or afflictions to purify them, wake them up, bring them closer to Him. And if Allah really hated you, He would give you more of the dunya, so that He would blind you and seal your heart and you would never pay attention to Him. So to change perspective and understanding and say, no, it doesn't mean that Allah hates you. It doesn't mean that Allah wants the worst for you. It doesn't mean that Allah has abandoned you. In fact, it could mean the opposite of all of this, that Allah wants to wake you up and bring you closer to Him. Now, if you reject these gifts from Allah Azza wa Jal because you misunderstand them, you can't blame Him subhanahu wa ta'ala, because we have all of this, right, explained in the Quran and the Sunnah. But rather, look at it as Allah redirecting you, refocusing you, bringing you back, and then you'll have a better judgment and understanding for who Allah is. Second, Allah Azza wa Jal takes no delight in punishing somebody. مَا يَفْعَلُ اللَّهُ بِعَذَابِكُمْ إِن شَكَرْتُمْ وَآمَنْتُمْ. What would Allah, do with your punishment if you are thankful and you are believers? Why would He do that for you? So Allah takes no delight in it. But Allah Azza wa Jal wants to wake some people up, or if He wants to punish people, you'll know when He wants to punish them. He leaves no space for them to come back. That's their punishment, right? So I think if we change perspective and how we see things, inshallah, it'll be easier, inshallah. Let me just tackle these, I'll come back to you, inshallah. If a person has good Quran recitation and memorized the most, but shy to go forward to lead the prayer among the sisters, okay. Is it called haya? If not, how to overcome it? It could be haya, especially if it's among the sisters, it could be haya. But don't let haya, right? Let me speak about it in general. Don't let haya stop you from doing something beneficial. Now, you could say to yourself, maybe I'm not the best, so I'm not going to propose that I'd be there, and I don't wish to take leadership, prominent positions, because I think other people are more qualified. That is humility, and everybody should have it. And you shouldn't assume positions of leadership until you are pushed to them. You don't volunteer, right? Except in very kind of exceptional cases, you don't volunteer. So let people push you. So if that sister or that brother or anybody else, right, they have humility, they say this is admirable, and keep that humility and keep that haya. But if that humility and that haya, and that's the exception I want to talk about, that humility and that haya results in the inadequate, incompetent people occupying that position, then you're at fault for it. So if somebody who does not know how to lead the salah ends up leading the salah because you are too shy, you're at fault. So you have then to assume that position and say, no, he's not qualified. It's not arrogance, but come on, it doesn't work here. So if you're among equals, be humble. If somebody can do the job, be humble, have that haya. But if no, a lot of incompetent people are around, and you need to be that person, then you need to be that person, right? So and you feel the responsibility. That's how to overcome it. You feel the responsibility in that it could be a sin. It could be, okay, depending on the situation. How to remedy to address one of the afflicted with mixing what is good and bad. How to rectify the situation and attain haya. Mixing good and bad, meaning that they do good things and bad things, how to rectify the situation and attain haya, asking Allah Azza wa Jal for it, staying away from sin until you see it as a hateful, despicable thing. So if it's difficult, ask Allah for it. If you're doing this and doing that, just keep asking Allah, Allah, Ya Allah, I know this is wrong, I don't really have haya, I'm loving things that you hate. I know that, I know I'm loving things that you hate. But Ya Allah, give me haya, give me honor, give me shyness, so I stay away from it and keep making that dua, right? Making that dua for them. If you stay away from something wrong, after some time you'll attain or regain that haya. You will not look at it as something normal. But as long as you're practicing it, of course, how could you see it as anything but normal? Or at least you will not have resistance to it. So dua maybe and staying away from it. Just the last thing here. So it's understood that Islam comes before Iman, but doesn't there have to be at least a bit of Iman for Islam to be valid? Yeah. So you're talking here about Iman in two different ways. So we must have Iman in the sense of belief. And tu'mina billahi, yani, you must have La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah, which is the Shahada. I must have the basis of Iman. That I believe in these things. I believe that Salah is obligation. I believe that Hajj is an obligation. So at that basic level, you must have Iman. But that is Iman at what? A basic level. And then Islam is the practice of that basic level of Iman. The second level of Iman that we're talking about is what? It's an in-depth Iman, and it's an in-depth attachment to it. More than I believe that Salah is an obligation. That's the basic. But now that Iman, no, now I need that Salah. This Salah is from Allah Azza wa Jal. I find my happiness in it. Something like that. So it's a stronger attachment. So we call that a stronger Iman. So the basic Iman is there for Islam, but the Iman that is at the higher level is a higher Iman. Right? Go ahead. Okay, good. That's not a bad question. That's a good question. Is it a sunnah to put your hoodie on in the prayer? Right? So that's a good question. So it goes back to you is it sunnah to cover your head in the salah or not? Right? So there's nothing in the Quran that says it's sunnah. Nothing direct in the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ that said it's sunnah. But some of Ahlul Ilm have said what? It was the habit of Muslims, okay, at the time of Muhammad ﷺ and the Sahaba and so on, that they would not exit their home without covering their head. So some of the ulama have said, we're not going to call it a sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, but it's the habit or the sunnah of the Muslims, that it's more honorable and a fuller dress, right, to cover your head. But at the same time, we can't say that it is a sin or it's disliked or takes away from the salah if your head is not covered. So you have an option. You could cover or you can uncover. And the interesting thing, subhanAllah, is that it was the habit of Muslims, right, till relatively recently to have their heads covered. It's really the habit of Muslims. The only maybe exception I know of, and I don't claim to know a lot, the people of Al-Andalus, interestingly, the people of all the western side of Islam, the people of Andalusia, they didn't have that habit of covering their head. Jesus didn't have it. But the rest of Muslims, till the Ottomans and in the Ottomans, right? And there was this issue with the Ottomans when they wanted to westernize. So people had the turbans on. So they wanted to change the turban to the fez. And the fez was a mark of westernization. And they wanted to do that just kind of to change the culture. You know how they've changed the alphabet in the Turkish language from the Arabic alphabet into the English alphabet just to westernize and distance people from their past? It's the same thing, replace the turban with the fez. So it was kind of a movement to do this. So even with people with the fez, you wouldn't like be a well-dressed person leaving your house without something on your head. And then we lost all of it. So it's a custom, right? If you want to cover your head because you feel it's better in the salah, by all means you could do that, inshallah. Okay, yeah, Hmm.
because if we don't, if, you know, some of the passive flaws that we do as Muslims is, well, you know, as long as myself and my house and my family were good, then everything's going to be good. But no, you have to, there has to be some sort of, ولولا دفع الله الناس بعضهم ببعض. We have to work outwards, otherwise it's going to collapse over us.
Mhm.
So how do you suggest or recommend a wise, from your experience, way for us to promote hayat in a wise way, in a sunnah way?
No. Jazakallah khair. So the question is, how do we promote haya among other people? So there's, ways that, as the previous question asked for, this are ways to increase haya internally in ourselves, personally. But how do we promote haya around us, especially that if you're simply content with only fixing yourself and your family, and you consider that to be enough eventually, right, that's going to collapse all over you, because society is not going to be content to leave you alone, right? Even if you say, I'm just going to protect myself, society will come and try to change you. So if you don't try to change it, society is changing you. So first of all, wallahu alam, how do you promote haya around you? First is the spread of knowledge itself, for people to know that this is wrong. And it could just simply be a neutral transmission of that knowledge. There is this ayah, there is this hadith, lower your gaze, it says this. And you simply share, let's say you're on social media or you're talking to people, you're supposed to lower your gaze so men don't look at women, women don't look at men. And subhanAllah, how we overlook this when we're watching the news or watching commercials, or we don't pay attention to the fact we are looking at other men or other women that would be forbidden. So transmission of that knowledge, or if a woman does this or a man does that. So if we know first that it is wrong, then we can do something about it. The issue is that we sometimes don't know that these things are wrong. We're not aware, we're not being reminded. Once we know, right, then we have to start kind of actively reminding people, hey, this is wrong. And maybe not in a personal way, but in a general way. A lot of Muslims, you can say, a lot of Muslims do this, and we should pay attention to it. A lot of Muslims take these types of pictures, take these types of videos, speak in those ways. They leave this house this way. They mingle in that way, and that is wrong. So when you talk about it generally, and it reaches more people, then they will understand that I'm doing something wrong, and I'm lacking a part of haya. So if there is knowledge and if there is condemnation of it, but in a general sense, then a lot of more people will be aware of that. The final stage of that is to address it specifically. What you're doing is wrong. What you're doing is wrong. Whenever that is beneficial. But if you try one and we try two and we keep insisting on two, eventually, inshaAllah, enough people at least will be aware and they will start noticing that what they're doing is wrong. Especially when they come back and they say, no, it's not wrong. Or yes, it's wrong, but. Then you engage in a conversation with them because they invited that conversation. And that is a form of da'wah then, right? But you imagine also at the same time, you gotta be patient with them because all the outside forces are telling them that it's okay. Like compared to what rest of society is doing, hey, they're angels, right? But it's not good enough compared to what Allah Azza wa Jal wants, right?
I'm talking about the society as a whole, the mix of
Muslim and non-Muslim.
right? So what you're proposing here may apply
Muslims.
to the Muslim, of course, which might be, in some cases, adhering, submitting, because the qawlullah, and some of them are actually even more, stubborn and listening to you, as opposed to the non-Muslim. Non-Muslim sometimes they just back off because they know I have jinn. They know that I don't know anything about religion, so
Yeah.
who am I to debate this? But my question really is about the society.
The society, if it includes non-Muslims, you can't begin with haya because there's no foundation to it. You have to begin with, as you said last time, with tawheed. Or somebody else, right? So you have to begin with tawheed. But talk about haya, it's kind of incomprehensible, right? What is the foundation? Has to be kind of Allah Azza wa Jal, and if Allah is there and the Prophet is there, then there's right and wrong.
Like I was, like for instance, I want to I don't think I achieved anything, but I don't know a similar situation in the gym where, oh, look, well, we have Pilates and yoga. And I'm like, no, thank you. I'm not confused about my hormones.
Mhm.
You know, the message, the content is authentic, but the delivery
No, I mean, the delivery doesn't need to be confrontational, right?
messed up.
Or degrading. Like, I'm going to say that to degrade you, right? And display my superiority to you. It doesn't need to be like that.
How do we take advantage of such a situation to do the da'wah, which I don't know where to start?
I mean, you could take it back to, I mean, no, I can't because God commanded us to be humble, and part of humility is to not to display ostentatiousness, right? So the less that you attract attention to yourself, the better you are, the better your soul is. And if you talk like that, which is about yourself, it's not about them, but about how you're supposed to be and connected to the divine and a higher power, then it has meaning. So it's not really combative when you say it like that. Allahu Alam. Allahu Alam. Tfaddali. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, somebody added a question, so maybe I have it. Okay, I got it. I recently heard that there is a difference of opinion on whether the Dajjal will be punished in the Akhirah or if he won't because he didn't have a choice in becoming Dajjal. May you elaborate? So, no, of course, Dajjal had a choice. It's not that Allah Azza wa Jal had compelled him, but Allah had tested him with that power and he chose to do with it the most wicked of things. So, Dajjal is a disobedient. How could a person who claims to be a prophet, then to claim to be God, then kill people because they refuse to believe in him, not be punished in the hereafter? So he will be punished in the hereafter, and he is disobedient, and Isa will kill him. It's not like Isa will come and say, you know, by the way, you are forgiven, or by the way, you just fulfilled your duty, and now you are free. No, he is guilty of all of that, and he had a choice, so Dajjal should be punished in the Akhirah. Now, do we have anything else? Should we let you go? طيب الحمد لله سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك والحمد لله رب العالمين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله